Hello, darling. How was school?
Fine. I like school. We're learning new stuff every day and...
Whoa, slow down there, girl.
What is it, girl? What was that? Little Timmy next door fell in the well?
Again. I'll grab my coat and some rope. Hey, trippers! Welcome to another episode of the Road Tripping Podcast. I'm your host, Dean Ward.
And I am your host, Molly Malloy. As always, it's great to have you tuning in.
If this is your first episode, then welcome. If it's not your first episode, then welcome back. Each week, Molly and I take a drive along the information superhighway to find topics that we find interesting, obscure, funny, or downright bizarre, and then bring them to the show to share with you, our listeners, all in the hopes that we can make your commute suck just a little less.
You can find all previous episodes of the Road Tripping Podcast for free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and now even our own app, which is available in the Google Play Store. To stream or download our show on your mobile device, start by opening your favorite app and typing the Road Tripping Podcast, that's tripping with a G, into the search bar. While you're there, be sure to subscribe to our feed so you'll have access to all of our previous shows, as well as all of the future goodness we're planning on bringing your way. If you have any difficulty in finding us, then check out our homepage at theroadtrippingpodcast.com/subscribe for a list of directories that once clicked will take you straight to our feed on that directory.
Setting all silliness aside, the dog has proven itself over and over through the millennia to really and truly be man's best friend, providing us with a selfless love that no other animal on the planet could or does so strongly. They have been loyal and faithful guardians, companions, fighters, herders, policemen, and soldiers. But what we found interesting and wanted to share with you is some of the more specialized things that the dog has been trained to do to assist mankind. First, we have to ask ourselves, besides the character traits I've already mentioned, what reason is there to choose a dog for any job outside of where its teeth and size are the most important thing about them? What is it that is the greatest asset a dog has over man? Scientific proof tells us it's their nose. But Dean, you say, that is obvious to everybody. Look, I get it. I honestly said the same thing when Molly brought up the subject during our show planning. Just bear with me and let me take a minute to explain the science part just a little bit, and I think it will put the couple of jobs we want to tell you specifically about into a bit more perspective, and maybe even give you a few oh wow moments. You see, a dog's sense of smell, while we all know it's better than our own, is not simply 1 or 2 times better at sniffing out an odor, but better by many orders of magnitude. Scientists estimate it could be between 10,000 and 100,000 times better. One article I was reading suggested an analogy of what vision would be like for a human versus a dog with those numbers. The scientists suggested that if you were to suppose the lower end of 10,000 times better, then as humans see around 1/3 of a mile, a dog would see 3,000 miles just as well as if whatever they were viewing was right in front of them. That is absolutely mind-boggling to contemplate. If we take a look at the physiology of a dog's nose, we can see just how complex it really is. For starters, they possess up to 300 million olfactory receptors in their noses, compared to about 6 million in the average human, giving them the ability to pick up a scent that has been diluted to a 1 to 2 parts per trillion. When we inhale, we smell and breathe through the same airways within our nose, but when dogs inhale, a folded tissue just inside the nostril helps separate the two functions. It is also different when we exhale. For humans, it goes through our nose the same way it came in and forces out any incoming odors. When dogs exhale, though, the spent air exits through the slits in the side of their noses. The exhaled air then swirls out, assisting new odors into the dog's nose. Dogs can also wiggle their nostrils independently, which we can't do. At least, I've never met anybody that could. This, along with the fact that the so-called aerodynamic reach of each of their nostrils is smaller than the distance between the nostrils, helps them to determine which direction the odor came from and helps them in locating the source of smells. To top all this, dogs have a second olfactory capability that we just don't have, made possible by an organ we just don't possess. the nasal organ, also known as the Jacobson organ, which picks up pheromones, which are the chemicals unique to each animal species that advertise mating readiness and other sex-related details. The pheromones are not mixed up by the dog's brain because the organ has its own nerves, leading to a part of the brain devoted entirely to interpreting the signals.
The first trained dog that we're going to enlighten you on is one that if you're a fan of the police procedural shows on TV, you may have already been exposed to by seeing them at work, and that is the cadaver dog, also known by many other names such as human remains detector dog, decomposition canine, grave detection dog, victim recovery dog, drowned victim dog, or historical human recovery dog. All these terms are really the same thing. A dog that has been imprinted and trained to locate and indicate the presence of the odor of human remains. What do I mean by imprinted, you may ask? Imprinting is a type of learning that happens typically very early in a dog's life. For a normal dog that's not going to become a working dog, it begins at birth, when dogs learn primarily from their mother, but also from their littermates, the things that need to be, well, a dog, such as how to act around other dogs, how to read another dog's body language, and if it's okay to bite, etc. This learning also teaches a dog who to socialize with, who they'll end up mating with when they're older, and how to forge bonds within their species. Imprinting even teaches dogs what species they are. For a working dog, like a cadaver dog, this is the same time that specialized scents, often a chemical that simulates that of a dead body, are added into their world, and their training begins. They must be trained as both trailing dogs and air-scenting dogs to do the work of finding human remains. Trailing dogs follow a scent that has fallen on the ground. These dogs can pick out a human, or in the case of cadaver dogs, a decomposing human scent that was carried on a breeze, or fallen from a person carrying a body to its location. Air scenting is similar to trailing, but an air scenting dog must be able to pick up the scent out of a breeze and follow it to the source. That source could be really far away. The record for the longest detection by a dog was 3.2 kilometers, or nearly 2 miles. To get to the point where a dog can find human remains takes a lot of training and testing, as well as certification by the American Standards Board and the International Forensics Research Institute. Most dogs require roughly 1,000 hours of training before they ever go into the field to work, which is much more than many human trades. And that doesn't include the amount of hours the handler requires in learning about forensics best practices, crime scene etiquette, evidence collection, and much more. Needless to say, that makes the dog and a handler a very expensive proposition for any one jurisdiction to pay for. Some puppies can go upwards of $10,000. So quite often the dog and handler are private contractors brought in to assist the police in their investigations. The exact number of cadaver dogs are hard to come by, but estimates we found said that the United States has more than 500 volunteer-led canine search teams, although there are no figures for law enforcement-owned cadaver dogs. Bodies that were buried, dismembered, and submerged in water, moved from where they were killed, hidden in vehicles or buildings, have been successfully located by cadaver dog teams. They are also useful to police in that they can help eliminate suspected location by revealing that no owner of human remains is present at a designated location. This is important because, and again, if you watch the police procedural shows, you've seen this happen. Quite often, a criminal will try and make a deal with a prosecution to avoid trial by suggesting where a body is located in an attempt to reduce their sentence. The clearing of an area by determining that no odor of human remains was available enables the investigator to move on to other probable areas, as well as shut down the criminals that are just trying to waste their time. I've included in the show notes a link to a brief demonstration of how they work with the police. It is possible that a cadaver dog can make a false alert on an area where things like predator animals that have come in contact with a dead body have taken traces of it to other locations, or have left fecal matter containing traces of the dead body in a place outside of the original search area. Though the average success rate of a cadaver dog is suggested to be around 95%. It's been recorded that if the soil conditions are right, a cadaver dog can detect a body as deep as 40 feet or 12 meters underground, 98 feet or 30 meters submerged in water, and has been buried for many years. Now, I say many years, not to leave you hanging, but because there's another fascinating fact about them. While you would assume that a body would be easy for a dog to find as it decomposes, you would also assume that once there was nothing left but bones, then the dog wouldn't be able to find anything, right? Well, while there are cases out there, we occasionally see in the news where the dogs have helped to find the bodies of missing people that have been dead for 30 years. I even found an article online for what is being called archaeology dogs, where the handlers are assisting in archaeological digs with graves that date back to 700 BC, so just over 2,700 years old. I've included a couple of links to some articles for you to read in the show notes.
Before we move on to the next working dog on our list, here are a few brief messages.
More leads, less effort. Sounds good, right? Social Beat offers social media management tools, training, and teams to help you with content creations, posting, recycling, and more. Automatically post on all major networks. Organize your content into categories for the best content mix. Effortlessly repost your evergreen content for maximum impact. And save lots of time in the meantime. To help the show and get your 14-day free trial, follow the link in the show notes or by clicking on the banner on our homepage at theroadtrippingpodcast.com. We use them and think you should too. Join the hype today.
October is National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Increased awareness and early detection through regular screening has put breast cancer deaths on the decline. Research shows that screening with mammography can detect breast cancer early when it is most treatable. Women over 40 should schedule a mammogram today, and women of any age who are at high risk should talk to their doctors about when to start screening. For more information about mammography, breast cancer disease, screening, and treatment, visit radiologyinfo.org. If you'd like to support the cause, then please visit the Breast Cancer Research Foundation at bcrf.org. They are the highest-rated breast cancer organization in the United States, with an A ranking from Charity Watch.
Now, back to the show.
Our next interesting job a dog is now tackling is in the medical field, particularly in the identification of disease within human patients. Dogs can be trained to perform scent detection tasks that are difficult for both humans and machines to replicate, as we just discussed with the cadaver dog. There's growing evidence that shows elevated levels of a signature volatile organic compound can be attributed to different types of disease growth, and so by using the trained dogs, doctors and researchers can make much earlier and more effective diagnosis. In fact, here are some of the facts on this for you to think about. Dogs have better than a 40% success rate in identifying bladder cancer, which is way better than the average of a chance identification of 14%. Canines prove to be able to correctly pick out the scent of children infected with the malaria parasites 70% of the time. Parkinson's sufferers smell different even years before they have the disease. It is theorized that trained dogs could detect it as early as 7 years before onset. A study published in 2013 found that 2 trained dogs detected 11 out of 12 narcolepsy patients using sweat samples, demonstrating that dogs can detect a distinct scent of the disorder. But most importantly, they can provide a warning up to 5 minutes before an attack comes on, giving their handler a chance to get to a safe place or in a safe position. A small 2019 study found that dogs were able to clearly discriminate a general epileptic seizure odor, But researchers have previously reported that 4 out of 7 seizure alert dogs turned out to be warning their masters of psychological rather than epileptic seizures. Dogs are also helping diabetics know when their blood sugar level is dropping or spiking. The dogs detect isoprene, a common natural chemical found in human breath that rises significantly during episodes of low blood sugar. People can't detect the chemical, but researchers believe that the dogs are particularly sensitive to it and can be trained to tell when their owner's breath has high levels of it. 54% of migraine sufferers with dogs notice changes in the behavior of their pets during or preceding migraines. Nearly 60% of these subjects indicated that their dog had alerted them to the onset of a headache, usually an hour or two in advance. There is a proven ability to detect many forms of cancer, 88% accuracy with breast cancer, and 99% accuracy with lung cancer. As you can see, dogs can play a huge role in assisting disease identification. This list is just a few of the many different facts that we found about the use of dogs in the medical field, and it is growing every day. In fact, recent events have even led dogs to detecting the coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2, which has caused the worldwide COVID-19 pandemic. In a pilot study at the University of Helsinki, dogs were taught to recognize the previously unknown odor signature of the COVID-19 disease caused by the novel coronavirus. And in only a few weeks, the first dogs were able to accurately distinguish urine samples from COVID-19 patients from urine samples of healthy individuals almost as readily as a standard test, which will lead to potentially more effective scent tests to be used in a clinical practice. As we are sure you are aware, dogs have been widely employed as service animals for many years now. They perform many tasks, from assisting patients with post-stroke recovery, to seizure mitigation, to PTSD treatments, as well as even lead the visually impaired. But why, if what I am telling you is an accurate statement of the facts, hint, hint, every point is true, then why aren't dogs in every doctor's office? Well, a lot of this has to do with the costs, just like everything else in the world, but also a lot to do with the temperament of the animal and how well it is trained. There just isn't enough trained dogs and handlers to work on a massive scale that would be required to go nationwide like that. Besides, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration has regulatory authority over diagnostic tests, and their own rules don't make it easy to get approval to develop and market animal-based diagnostics without lengthy and costly hurdles. That way of thinking, however, is changing due to the recently signed federal right to try laws that open doors to the terminally ill. Scientists are working on devices that will deliver an accurate, rapid, and non-invasive test to diagnose cancer based on what they have learned studying dogs, but that is in an early product stage and not ready to be offered alongside existing diagnostic methods. So it is something to be on the lookout for in the future. I have included an interesting link about the artificial dog nose in the show notes.
While the majority of dogs used in police work are Labrador Retrievers or German Shepherds, for most handlers, the breed of dog is less far important than finding a dog who has a good hunt drive, strong nerves, and confidence. And there is precedent for that opinion, as dogs have been used in law enforcement since the first unofficial police dog way back in 1888, when bloodhounds were used due to the breed's history of being the best hunting dog. But like people, different breeds can be used in diverse ways for different things. Here's a very short list of just some of the other types of dogs now in use. 1. Dobermans, often used for chasing down fleeing suspects and narcotic detection. 2. Bloodhounds, trackers, often used in search and rescue, especially when it involves children, because they aren't aggressive and really like kids. 3. Giant schnauzers, extraordinary trackers of suspects, missing persons, bombs, and narcotics, also used in search and rescue because of their relentlessness, loyalty to the task, and unwillingness to give up. 4. American Pit Bull Terrier. They're confident, fearless, athletic, fast, and sturdy. The Pit Bull is primarily used for detection and patrolling. 5. Basset Hounds, Beagles, and St. Bernards make excellent search and rescue dogs. 6. Golden Retrievers, excellent medical detectors. 7. American Staffordshire Terrier and Poodles, autism support dogs and as therapy dogs for PTSD patients and people with anxiety and panic attack issues. 8. Pomeranians. Extremely good therapy dogs for anxiety, stress, and developmental issues. The list can go on and on if we include dogs with no specialized training that are used as support animals, but I think you get the point. Man's best friend is a true marvel, and even more as a guardian than they're given credit for.
Well, that's all the time we have for in this episode of the Road Tripping Podcast. But if you liked it and want to hear more, please subscribe to the show feed and give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast directory. The more positive reviews we receive, the more trippers will be able to find us, and the faster we will grow, thus being able to bring you new content. Be sure to visit our website, theroadtrippingpodcast.com, that's tripping with a G, to keep updated on future shows, leave show suggestions, and to see all the ways to find and interact with us all in one place. If you're able and feeling generous, then a link to our Patreon page can be found under the support link on the homepage. We have been your hosts, Dean Ward and Molly Malloy, and the Road Tripping Podcast is recorded and produced at Before Midnight Studio. As always, until next we meet, stay safe, trippers.